Monday night, 8 p.m., South Florida, North Florida, all points in between, all over these 50 United States, all across 7 continents, wherever you can pick up the internet. Dialogue with Dozie is on your airways. Listen, I want to be serious about tonight's show. This is a serious show. It's one of our more consequential shows that we will do as a medium. And I'm blessed tonight to be joined, and I just want to thank our guest, Ms. Ingrid, for coming on at the last minute, because I actually did a pivot with the show tonight from its original conception and changed it, and I'm going to share that with you in a second. Ms. Ingrid, how are you doing?
So much for having me, Dozell.
Thank you so very, very kindly. I know you're not always on the most popular side, but I just admire and respect, that you're always standing there faithfully supporting your beliefs and everything. And just going to give you a little introduction, family, to the night show. I was going to do tonight's show, and next Monday night show will be, let's see, next Monday is not election. So the next 3 shows will have some implication to the upcoming general election, which includes presidential election. And tonight's show was originally slated to be it was going to be a comparisons of Kamala Harris and Donald Trump on their policies, and I was going to lay out 5 or 6 policies that have been polled and so forth, and just compare the 2 candidates, compare them on where they stand on the policies. And then I just was true to myself and said, who am I fooling? Okay, my real feeling is, well, let me put it to you like this. I was a part of a meeting when some men voiced that some black men had a real problem supporting Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, not because of her stance, not because of her policies, but the fact that she was a woman. And these were black men who voiced that. And if you'll notice, her polling is down amongst men, and particularly, and some black men, she's down from where President Biden was 4 years ago, and far from where President Obama was in 2008 and 2012. And so the executive director on that call said, really, does it matter if the person is colorless, genderless, nationalityless, just a blank slate? Compare them to who they're running against, and then make a wise decision. And so that's kind of what guided me for tonight's show. And I did a lot of work. I want you to know, Ms. Ingrid, I did a lot of background, particularly on President Trump's 4 years as president, because he does have a record, unlike a lot of candidates. Both of these candidates have a record. The vice president does not have one as president, but she has one as second in command, and being tied to the Biden administration. So I changed the narrative and pivoted to what does this say that America so strongly supports the former president with some of the very large controversies and so forth surrounding him. So that's what we're going to take off tonight. And the first thing I want to do is I want to look at President Trump's presidency, and he does have a record, Ms. Ingrid. And let me just kind of throw a few things out, and let's comment on them. I don't know. I'm going to look at some of the highlights of his presidency, the 4 years of his presidency, and let's kind of discuss some of those things. One of the things that people, I don't think, possibly give the former president credit for is that during his 4 years, we did not have a war. He did not initiate any wars. He did not initiate any wars during his presidency. And The only skirmishes he got in, there were a few where he cleaned up ISIS and some leaders were killed of terrorist organizations. But President Trump turned the focus from a lot of those Middle Eastern terrorist organization and their threats and some of the skirmishes that we were in. In fact, President Biden made a exit out of it and said we were ending our involvement on the only war we were in. And there was a lot of controversy about getting out of that and the problems that it caused. There were lives lost and so forth. And that's all a part of war, unfortunately. But President Trump, that was one of the successes of his presidency uh, that we could look at as a success. On the other hand, whereas President Trump seemingly got the respect of the leader in Red China, if you remember, he was talking about uh, 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 Mr. President Kim made allusions to the fact that he had a button on his desk, and President Trump simply said, "I have one too, and mine is bigger than yours." And it seemed to have changed the dialogue between the two of them, and they uh, began a bromance. And I have no problem with you having an ongoing relationship that you can talk with these countries that have been listed as our our enemies. Uh, However, when it comes to Russia, it appears that President Trump just does what we would call in the real world of just kissing up to Putin and allowing him to say anything, and we accept it and believe it. What is your take on that, Ms. Ingrid?
Well, my take on the on why people are still seeing President Donald Trump as a formidable leader, as you stated earlier, he does have a track record. The American people now have a something to compare. They have 4 years under President Trump to compare with the last 3.5 years under the current administration to compare, right? So the fact that they have tangible comparisons to say what has he done, in the 4 years. You talked about he annihilated the threat of ISIS by taking out some of their top leaders. There was absolutely no wars. Now we have two wars under the current administration, right? There was no inflation under President Trump. Now we have inflation at one of the highest levels in the history of the nation. We talk about food prices, gas prices, right? Let's talk about the border wall. You you cannot have a nation. It is impossible to have a nation without borders. It is impossible to have a house without walls or windows. If everybody in the world was our friend, you just talk about Russia. If everybody in the world was our friend, um, and every neighbor was a friend and had no ill will towards us, why don't we take the walls off our homes? Why don't we take the doors off our homes? Why don't we take the windows off? Let's have borderless homes, windowless, doorless homes, so anybody can walk into your home and you welcome them. It's the same thing with a nation. A nation cannot have security with its citizens feeling safe without some kind of border that allows protection for its people. President Trump delivered that to the American people. So they felt a sense of security, not just that other nations were afraid to start a war with us. They were also not walking across our borders and coming here to do harm. Let's talk about the four previous presidents who talked about moving the capital of Israel, Jerusalem. Let's talk about the four past presidents. They talked about it, but they did not do anything about it. So that's what men like, men of color, black men, or however you want to call them. They want strong leadership. They want somebody who says what they mean and mean what they says and do what they say they're going to do. It's that simple.
Okay. And granted, he did move the capital to back to Jerusalem. Was it from Tel Aviv? Was it?
Yep, yeah, but before presidents said they would. Before presidents said they would, but they didn't. They never
What
did.
was, what was the significance of that? What's the significance of that?
The significance of that is because biblically, from a biblical perspective, the Jewish people are a blessed people. It is written in the word that God blesses those who bless Israel and honor those. That land was given to them from thousands of years ago. That is a biblical perspective that we, and that's one. But the other thing is, we support our allies. Israel is the only other democracy in the Middle East who is an ally of the United States. So you support your friends and your allies. So those are the two significant things about that move.
Yeah, I knew that. I mean, there's no question that America is one of its greatest allies is Israel, and I think God has kind of set us up as one of its main protectors. We lead the world in protecting Israel because it's kind of over there by itself amongst all the Arab countries. I just never fully understood that move of the capital, other than, and you just clarified that for me. That was so. I don't think we, and, you know, you can say, is it happenstance or that it was just because he's a strong man and nobody challenged him? We did have 4 years without any major international wars, and I know he makes the complaint now that had he been in office, Russia would have never invaded Ukraine, and I think that may be debatable. He says he could end that war in one day. I think that may be debatable. I don't think Putin has gone to all those lengths to let one man change his mind, but that's neither here nor there. We talked about. I heard you mention inflation, and what Trump touted when he left office, that he left the stock market in a higher rate, which he did. It really was, and that was he used that as the barometer for the economy. However, I think in all fairness, if we were to talk about the inflation rate, we would have to say that that is a direct cause of a byproduct of the pandemic. And coming out of the pandemic, America has the best and the strongest economy of any industrialized nation. The unemployment rate is unbelievably low. The market is up. We have record finishes the last 3 weeks in the stock market. So let's just pivot. I'm willing to meet us there. Let's play the clip for this. Was one of the telltale things, and possibly led to President Trump's defeat in the election. I'm sure it didn't help him. Let's go to clip one. It deals with the pandemic and his take on the pandemic. Let's talk about that. Let's
very powerful light. And I think you said that has him in check, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting. Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me. So we'll see. But the whole concept.
This was a far-fetched thought or possibility of President Trump on how to end the coronavirus, but certainly he cannot be blamed for the virus. It was worldwide. It was a pandemic. However, I think it was his response that could have cost him the election, and it was kind of. And I know you and I have never in our lifetime lived through it. I think the closest thing to that, to a pandemic, was the outbreak of polio back in the 40s or the 30s. And so, in all fairness to anybody who would have been in the White House, and this was a new thing, but it was, and it's just, maybe it came from the top down, but we experienced it here in this state. where we have and I just said we have a crazy Republican governor. Excuse the language. I know that's your governor. Uh, it was a rush back to get the economy started, as opposed to a lookout for people's lives. And I think Trump's dealing with Dr. Fauci and the CDC, instead of erring on the side of caution, it was a rush to get the world, the nation started back again. And I think I think that hurt him with the election. What's your take on that? I mean, that was kind of a humorous. That's not fair to him, actually.
Well, I'm glad you play the clip. And I'm glad that you're saying that this is an unprecedented pandemic, that we've never seen the likes of this before. So in fairness to him, one, we've never seen this before, but two, you heard him trying to find solutions, even though he doesn't know what it is. He's trying to find solutions and finding solution to help the people. He's trying to find ways to help the people. There are many ways to treat, multiple ways that you can treat any disease. There's not necessarily. I've seen, for example, a cancer. I've seen people use different therapies, different therapeutic methods. Some use, conventional, unconventional methods, and people have had success on multiple cases. I personally had COVID. I use all kind of different things, homemade stuff, trying to find what would work and what would not work. So we were all in a state of trial and failure, but at the same time, he was being guided by the people who were the experts, Fauci. And if you listen to Fauci, several times he confused the public himself, giving wrong information, disinformation. His information did not line up. And again, you can say, this was new to him as well. He probably was stumbling, trying to find the right word. So all of us were in a state of trial and failure, in all fairness to President Trump.
Well, I think, in fairness to the whole situation, on both sides, we were trying to
Yeah.
find. My only issue, the only thing that I can actually, my issue is more with the governor than President Trump. There was just a rush to resume normality, and it was based on the financials of well-being of the country. And I just saw, while we were piling up deaths and it was reaching up towards 1 million people, I thought that somebody should have backed up and said, whatever precautions the CDC is advising, let's err on the side of caution. We'll rebuild the economy. We're 4 years in, and the economy is like I said, it's the best of all industrialized nations. There was some inflation attached to what happened, but I think you put people over money sometimes. What would it do to have a good economy and people are dying left and right? So I think it's a fair point there. So if we were to grade him politically, based on national security, he poured more money in the military, kind of as did President Reagan, built up the morale of the troops. So saying, I'll give him credit for all of those things. He did, and we'll see. I just left a forum on Project 2025, and he did what, let's satisfy big billionaires. And so let's, instead of doing what's safe for climate change and those kind of things, and let's make America greener. No, let's make America richer and keep the oil stuff going. And we know fossil fuels is a cause of air deterioration. So that's kind of where we'll be. I think money is always what's attached to the Republican Party, and it takes a precedent sometime over some other things. So we'll
disagree. I disagree on that point, because I think, that especially in the state of Florida is strongest now than ever because the governor DeSantis stepped up and kept Florida open when other states were closed. We had thousands and thousands. We have 1,000 people per day still pouring into Florida, coming into Florida because Florida economy was booming. People were able to find work. People were able to find safety and security in Florida that they didn't find in some of the other cities during the pandemic. During the pandemic, many cities were overrun by people, by criminals, people who were breaking into stores, setting fire to places, just looting every place they could, and the governor stood strong. He kept Florida open. Now Florida has $1 billion in billions in surplus because the governor kept Florida strong. So we're benefiting economically from his decision and, to keep Florida open. And I think it was a good decision at the time.
Well, we'll talk about that in a year or two when we start talking about the governor's race. I see another side, and the other side of that is Florida is one of the highest death rates of the pay. And my wife and I are ferocious cruisers, and I just remember the few times I got out of this house and just rode along the beach, seeing those cruise ships out there with dead bodies on them that were not allowed to come in at that time because we just were being cautious, and he forced the cruise industry back, and I thought that was brutal. But we'll talk about that later. Let's move on to Trump and his morals. And remember, this is not a referendum on Trump; it's a referendum on America. Right now, he is at 47% in most polls. If you average out the most of the polls, he's at a solid 47%, and at 47%. That seems to be a kind of a ceiling. He's having a hard time going above that, but it's a solid 47%. And so 47%, that represents almost half of the nation. With some of the things surrounding this candidate is just, unless we are just redoing the standards for leaders of our nation, he has just taken the nation to new depths in morals and so forth and so. So let's start this. We may have to stop it in the middle for the break, and we'll pick back up at the morals. But let's just talk about the morals of this president. And of course, the first thing is we go back to when he was running in 2024. This tape surfaced of him, a comment that he made when he was running in 2015. This tape surfaced of him, of the comments, and it kind of spoke of where he stood. Let's go to that.
Donald Trump was caught on a hot mic in 2005, bragging in vulgar language about kissing, groping, and trying to have sex with a married woman.
I did try. I moved on her very heavily. In fact, I took her out furniture shopping. She wanted to get some furniture. I said, I'll show you where they have some nice furniture.
It happened on board a bus in a conversation with Today Show co-host Billy Bush, who was then co-host of the TV show Access Hollywood. The Washington Post uncovered audio and video, which is now threatening to throw a major curveball into the Trump campaign.
It's kind of stunning to hear the Republican nominee, father of five, married to Melania Trump, a person who won handily the evangelical vote,
yes,
talk this crudely about women. As the bus pulls into a TV studio to film a guest appearance on Days of Our Lives, Trump and Bush notice soap actress Ariana Zucker.
I gotta use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the do anything.
Trump is now issuing a rare apology, saying this was locker room banter, a private conversation that took place many years ago. Bill Clinton has said far worse to me on the golf course, not even close. I apologize if anyone was offended.
To his credit, and that was when that surfaced when he was running in 2015, and so we know that he was mentored by New York attorney Roy Cohn.
Yes.
And Roy Cohn told him, "You never apologize, you never admit wrong, you always win." He gave it, and you'll never see that from Trump again. The apology. But before we go to break, let me just ask you. And we're going to do a whole section here on his morals as president. Is America changing its standards for the morals of their leader? Is that where we are with Donald Trump?
Well, it's not just Donald Trump. It's many of our leaders. We've not had the only perfect leader that we've had on this earth is Jesus Christ. We've never had a perfect man walking the earth except for Jesus Christ. All of these presidents and former presidents have skeletons in their closet. President Trump has never ever at any point said that he was a Christian, that he was, a innocent, a Christian, or he was a saint. He has never ever said he was a saint. In fact, everybody knew his past, and what he was involved in. The bottom line is, if we can't raise one standard for President Trump and not raise the same standard for the criminal family, Joe Biden and his son, who his son right now is facing criminal charges. The Biden family, the entire family is facing criminal charges. Also, we have not yet gone to Kamala's skeletons, and they're coming out. Believe me, in the next 2 weeks, you will have bombshells after bombshells after bombshells, because all these leaders are imperfect men and women. The reason why people are still sticking with Donald Trump is not because of his perfection. It's because he does what he says he will do. He was a strong leader. He led. He took care of the nation. He wiped out terrorists. There was no war when he was around. Inflation was taken care of. Why would a billionaire walk away from his wealth and his ability to earn billions of dollars and be shot at 2-3 times, take a bullet for the nation? He was already famous. He was already wealthy. Why would anybody leave their wealth to stand up for America? Because he cares about the American people.
Now I'll answer you. I'll answer that question. I really will answer that question. The narrative of this campaign is, and you hear it throughout, this man cares about himself. In fact, the thought is that he's really running with the hopes that the criminal cases, which you're going to get into on the other side of the break, will go away. So, and whereas the Harris campaign touts her as caring about the American people, and Mr. Trump caring about himself, which would be consistent with his entire life.
I disagree with that.
He's thrown many people under the bus, and he was willing to throw his own child under the bus in one of the lawsuits. So I think we need to kind of back up and look at it. That is, we're not going to make him all of a sudden this.
He's not a saint. No, he's not a saint. And I keep saying he's not a saint. He's never said he was a saint. He's had issues in his past, just like Bill Clinton and many other leaders who have been unfaithful in different areas of their life. But he does what he says he's going to do, and that is integrity. People are looking at his past. He came in, he took office, he did exactly what he said he was going to do. America was strong, America was respected, and there was no inflation and no wars, and that's why even after everything, America is still standing with President Trump. There's no candidate. Let me just explain something. There's absolutely no candidate that the Democratic Party can put on the ballot on November 5 that can beat President Trump. No candidate in the world.
We'll see that in a few weeks. But I want to take this word integrity. We're going to pick back up on that when we come on the other side.
Yes.
We're going to break. We'll be right back. My guest tonight is Miss Ingrid, and I'm just so glad to have her here so we can have a deep dive into why is America fascinated with the man with so many controversies, flaws that no other president or presidential candidate has been able to have in the history of this nation. We'll be right back after the break. You see it right here, GoGigaWorld.com. All of your virtual needs, they got them for you. They're waiting to hear from you right now. That's GoGigaWorld.com. You saw some of the celebrities at the end of the clip that they have done work, are working with now, and others that they're going to do in the future. GoGigaWorld.com. The link's just one of the groups that are Muslim sororities. It didn't end with the pandemic. We're going to be virtual until the end of time. Since we are, why don't you go to GoGigaWorld.com? They got your web building, all of that stuff right here. Listen, tonight's midway point, we're going to deal before we get back to the show. We want to talk about an incident that occurred yesterday in Cleveland Stadium. And Deshaun Watson was, as you'll see in just a second, he was carted off the field after it has been confirmed that he tore his Achilles heel in yesterday's game. And let me give you a little backdrop. Deshaun came to Cleveland from Houston, where he had several off-the-field civil lawsuits against him, which he settled. I think over 26. One resurfaced a few weeks ago. He immediately settled that. He was suspended from football for a year. He went back and was injured. Cleveland gave him a unprecedented $5 million contract, which was the highest. I think it netted him at about $50 million a year. But the fact that it was fully guaranteed, and what you're looking at is his injury, which gives credence to the fact that that's why they don't give fully guaranteed contracts in the league. He was not having a good year. He was over all of his injuries. They set him down last year because of an injury early in the season. So they thought this would be a breakout year for Deshaun Watson, who had a successful career as quarterback with the Houston Texans before all of the controversies began. Deshaun yesterday tore his Achilles heel after having the absolute worst year on the field that he has had in all of his 13 years, a horrific year he was having. And as he was being escorted off the field, being driven off the field, and he openly wept, not for pain from the injury, but because of the implications that an Achilles is at least a year out of service, and it's a tough rehab. The Cleveland fans cheered him. They actually cheered him as they were taking him off the field, which was absolutely the worst, the most classless act that any sports town could ever demonstrate. The Philly fans are noted for being horrific fans and being a tough fan base to play in front of. The Sixers, the Eagles, probably the toughest. The Phillies, they're just known to be a tough sports fan, a tough sports town to play in front of. But Cleveland, the city of Cleveland, Cleveland Browns fans who were in that stadium yesterday and who cheered when he was taken off that field, boo to you. You're booed by the dialogue because of your actions yesterday. Regardless of his off-the-field problems, he cleaned them up. He took care of them. We're not judging him on that, but to see anybody lose what possibly could be his career, that was a very classless act. Boo to you, Cleveland. We hope that you don't ever do that again. We don't ever want to see that in any field of sports or play. Okay. Now, transitioning over to some good things that happen on sports in the sports arena. Last night, for the first time in 23 years, the existence of the WNBA, the New York Liberty won their first NBA championship. Hats off to the New York Liberty, their first championship. They've been to the championship series several times, I think about 5 or 6. And they played what was a monumental best-of-5 series against the Minnesota Lynx. I'm a Minnesota Lynx fan because I'm for anybody, all of the Minnesota sports teams, especially the basketball teams. Well, not the Vikings, but all of the basketball teams. But I saw they played a monumental series. They went to 5 games, and there was never a game they had. The last time was the biggest deficit between the games, and that deficit was 7 points at the end. They were all 2 or 1 point victories. Some of them were a last second shot. But hats off to Liberty. It drew out All of New York came to support them. Curtis Richardson Jackson. Spike Lee was on the sideline biting the towel, sliding all over the floor. He's a helpless New York fan. But hats off to all of you, New York Liberty. And then hats off to the whole WNBA. Hats off to the association, the Women's National Basketball Association, the Caitlin Clark and Ms. Reese emergence into the scene this year really set you all off, and both of them lived up to their billings. And Caitlin Clark took Indiana to the playoffs for the first time in years, and it was just a great year for the WNBA. So it's our hats off to the WNBA for a successful season, and to see a banner championship series, and to see the Barclays Center there in Brooklyn crowded, overpacked, people hanging from the Raptors for Game 5 and deciding game of an exciting series was just a wrap to a great city. Hats off to you. Shout out to the WNBA and the WNBA New York Liberty. Now, back to the dialogue. So what I want to do, I'm going to ask Madam Producer to put the poster that we just posted, and we left talking about, my guest is Miss Ingrid, and thank you again, Miss Ingrid, for being here with me. You're pretty brave because you're by yourself, and so I'm acting as moderator, but I'm also acting. I didn't bring anybody on. I didn't want a full-fledged debate. I just want to throw some things out, and where I see that I think there's some things that could be added, I'm going to do that. Can you throw that poster up that shows the last one we gave, if you have it already? If you've been able to know the one with the last one that I did. Oh yes. Okay, so you made that work. Okay, so this is we ended talking about integrity. I actually sent another one that said this is a poster from the Times of India that fact checked Donald Trump over his 4 years in office. It's estimated that he told 22,000 lies. And this, you probably can't see on this poster, but it has all of the lies that he stated in public and the times that he repeated them. So I think when we talk about integrity, I think that's one of the last words that will depict Donald Trump. What do you say, Ms. Ingrid?
Well, I disagree with you, because they fact check who they want to fact check, and they don't fact check everybody evenly. If they did the same for Joe Biden or Kamala, oh my goodness, they would find that they have much more of a track record in line. We talk about the Joe Biden, who says, oh, he didn't know anything about his son's dealings, with foreign nations and all the where the $20 million that showed up in their bank accounts came from. He didn't know anything about it. And yet he did, because he was in the room and was present when all the transaction was taking place. So we talk about integrity. It has to be a level playing field where we're fact checking all our leaders, not just President Trump. So that's my take on it. And the last time I was here, I predicted that Joe Biden would not be on the November 5 ticket with everything that was happening. And I was right. He's not on the November 5 ticket. And I'm predicting right now, that the American people are going to hear the skeletons that are in Kamala Harris' closet, and that she will not be the president of the United States of America. So that's my prediction on the integrity issue, because they all have a skeleton in their closets. We can't fact check one leader and not fact check all leaders equally.
I mean, this was an independent news source.
I understand, but I want you to pull up one with Joe Biden's fact checking and pull up one with Kamala's fact checking. So, and put all three of them across the screen. That's what I need. You can't just put one and not the other.
Madam Producer, during the course of this show, if you can come across, I'm not going to be able to do that mechanically while we're doing the show. But Madam Producer, if you can find a fact check of Joe Biden
and Kamala, yes.
Or Ms. Harris, please let me know that they're here, and we'll find a place and we'll insert them.
Yeah, let's be fair.
Here's what I want to say about that. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a lifelong Republican. However, President Reagan, I actually guarded him as a police officer. I was within feet of him and I won't tell you what I thought.
Wow.
I didn't agree with a lot of his policies. He termed the term, he coined the term welfare queen and put it on black females, and I despise that. I worked at the police department where you had these what he called welfare queens. We had a CETA program that brought people brought them off of welfare, gave them job training. He abruptly ended it. And it's always a Republican narrative. Let's get government out of things and put it in the private sector. The only problem is the private sector always gets the opportunities, but they never manifest this stuff. So, but I said that to say this. President Reagan, George Bush, George Bush the first, George Bush, Noah W. I know integrity and politicians are always going to be challenging balancing act, but never, ever, ever, never, ever, ever, never, ever, ever has there been a president or one who ran for president in the history of the presidency that lies like Donald Trump. Nobody lies like him. You cannot get him on a 5-minute. You cannot get him to do a 5-minute interview on any subject and not hear him tell ridiculous lies.
I disagree because.
Well, let me just throw one out for you. He said, and Mac, I just switched over to the comments. You're right, Philly. That's symbolic, embolic of Philly. That they would they cheered when Michael Irvin got hurt because the Cowboys and your Cowboys and the Eagles were bitter rivals, and he broke his neck actually in Philadelphia, and they cheered. And
wow.
that's been a while ago, but that's horrific.
Yes, it is.
So to see that, but I just had to mention that. And sports teams crowds have got to do better than that. But remember when Trump spoke, when he spoke, the speech that he gave that led to the January 6th riots, he said his crowd was bigger than the one that Dr. King had at the Lincoln Memorial in 1963. Now, can you imagine that you can think you can get away by telling a ridiculous lie like that? That's one top of my head.
They didn't show the crowd. They didn't show all the crowd. That's one. So, and nobody counted individually. So we don't know if it was true. If it was truth or not. Let
me address you on that. Do you know where he addressed those people? They were right off the side, right off of Pennsylvania Avenue was blocked, right off the side of the White House. If you ever been there, you'll know there's not room to pack 200,000 people in that were there at the I Have a Dream speech in August of 1963. That went all around the mall, all around the reflective fountain, all around there. As they had 100,000 people right at the feet of the memorial itself and in that section. So it's just one thing you can say about a person who exaggerates and this and that, but Trump out and out lies like nobody you ever heard of. I mean, he lies so much it's funny. It's actually funny.
He also speak his mind and speak and speak the truth on many fronts, and people don't talk about that. They talk about his exaggeration or his misquotes or whatever. I am not a defender of President Trump. Personally, I was very skeptical of him as a woman. I was skeptical of him when he was running for office. Everybody was, waiting and watching. People were looking at the polls, and it did not show that he was going to win. So that's one reason why people respect him, because he is an overcomer who came from an underdog position, came from outside of the establishment as a businessman who nobody thought, would win, and he won. So again, hardworking men, they understand strength when they see it, right? And people would rather be led by strength than by weakness. That's just the bottom line. There's no candidate that a Democrat can bring forth that has the strength and courage. While President Trump was shot and bleeding, he got up, raised his fist, and encourage people to fight on. Even if he's dead, he's like, fight on. What are people fighting for? People want to be free. They don't want to be oppressed. They want the opportunity to live in America, the American dream that is safe, have been able to take care of their families, send your kids to school. They want lower inflation. They want better, a better standard of life. People, the human being innately, they want to thrive. People don't just want to survive. They want to thrive. They want to move from one step to another step to another step. And that's why the entire American system is built on ranks. In the military, you have ranks. In business, you have ranks. In education, you have ranks, because it allows people to go from one level to another level, always thriving, and make them feel useful, worthwhile, successful, part of something great.
Let's so Madam Producer just trying to compare some chart on integrity. Let's pop that chart up, and I'm gonna come back to what you said about freedom in just a second. Go ahead, let's pop this chart in, Madam Producer. And I had nothing to do with this, and I can't read it.
I can read it. So you asked me to pull. So what I did was go into ChatGPT real quick and ask for them just to compare the three candidates of those three folks. And basically it says Kamala, she's generally truthful with occasional exaggerations. And some of those have been on healthcare, criminal justice. She's seen as mostly accurate, but has made some misleading claims. Dear Joe Biden, more truthful than Trump with some exaggerations. Example, Social Security, economic policies, has been caught stretching facts, but not at the same frequency or severity as Trump. For dear brother Trump, it says high frequency of false or misleading statements. Example, 2020 election fraud, economy. And he's known for making the most false claims with over 30,000 fact-checked inaccuracies.
Okay. So thank you so very much. What was the source on that again, please?
This was ChatGPT, which is a computer, right? It just pulls from everything from the internet. So
see, you can't take the internet information from the internet as being factual.
So what I'll do next is I'll find out what the resources are, and I'll make sure I share those with y'all.
Okay, thank you. I just, Ms. Ingrid, there are a lot of things that I'll meet you halfway on, but you know that Donald Trump is the biggest liar in the history of the Oval Office. There's nobody. I was looking at Stephanie Rule one night, and I almost cracked up in laughter. She said it was a house of integrity. They were somewhere, and then all of a sudden Donald Trump popped up with all his lies, because he lies every time he opens his mouth. So, but let me go to another word that you just wrote. And that was freedom. That was freedom. You know, that is Kamala Harris's mantra. You see freedom, the freedom banner everywhere that she appears. I just left, and it ties into lies too. I just left a forum on a deep dive on Project 2025, and I thought we did a show on this before anybody ever talked about it. I did a show on it, and but I just and I've gone to several forums. Or I just finished one right coming into tonight's show, a deep dive on Project 2025. Do you not know that he says that he knows nothing about it? He doesn't know the people. There are so many things that he tried to do by executive order and learned that he couldn't do that are part of Project 2025. And those are all people that from the Heritage Foundation who gave him recommendations for those Supreme Court justices, people that were parts of his administration that he's now suddenly denying. No, he's not denying, he's lying. And there's so many parts of Project 2025 that he will implement very easily now because of what the Supreme Court has, that crazy decision that they gave to free him up from a criminal trial, thinking they could free him up by making him immune to so much stuff. So I just, freedom and integrity, I don't think those two words you want to tie. And the freedoms are freedoms that will affect people like you and I. Maybe we're at a socioeconomic level that we'll rise above some of the concerns, but getting rid of the deal, the Department of Education is automatically saying people who have people who have illnesses, all that's out the door. All of that's out the door.
Well,
Free
let's talk about
lunches, all of that's out the door. Making
let's talk about
everybody
Department of
can go to a
Education.
private school. Everybody can't go to a private school. Everybody does not want to send their child to a private school. Okay, but he is the freedoms. He is the one. I thought this was a DeSantis special. No, it was Trump who, by executive order, took the teaching of slavery out of schools. Who tried to do it, and the Department of Education blocked it through the Justice Department. Now he's saying that if he gets back in office, that he's going to pull any school that teaches about slavery, he's going to pull funding from them.
That is not true. That is not true. The history, it mandated the American story. Slavery is mandated as part of the American history. That is not true.
Okay,
that's not what he's taken. Listen, I was a school administrator. I was, a school official for 15 years. That is not true.
So
What
let's
they're
talk
doing
about
in the school system. Let's talk about it.
I'm a retired teacher. I'm a retired teacher.
Yes.
I know the Florida state standards.
Correct.
One of the things I just learned that DeSantis has changed is that the standards regarding slavery teaches the benefits of slavery to Black people. Now you tell me what benefit that is being taken from my homeland and thrust to make some white person's economic plight easier. Tell me what benefit. Yeah, I might learn how to saddle a horse, how to put shoes on a horse, do those things, but being forced to do that as opposed to being able to go out and do a career on my own in my homeland. I just believe that any Black person can ever see a benefit in slavery. And that's what DeSantis has done through the Florida state standards.
The critical race theory is not
We're
teaching
talking about critical race theory.
itself.
We're talking about slavery.
We're
We're talking about slavery.
And slavery, the American history, slavery is part of the history, and history is mandatory. It's mandatory to be taught in the state of Florida. But there are sections where they're teaching our children to hate other races, hating other races, or feeling sympathetic towards themselves or because of their race is not a solution, because you and I cannot change the color of our skin, but we can change the trajectory of our lives by working hard, by moving forward.
Let me ask you this, and I ask you and all, and I'm really, my goal tonight was to come on and moderate and maybe throw a soft rebuttal here or there. But as a person of color, I am just mortified that you can ever justify slavery. I
am not justifying slavery. My forefathers were slaves, and I'm not justifying slavery. I'm not justifying slavery. Slavery was wrong. Slavery was wrong on every front, socially, biblically, ethically. Slavery was wrong. But don't forget that the slavery was ended in this nation, not by the Democrats, but by the Republican Party. It was the Republican Party that ended slavery. Check who signed the Declaration.
Yeah, we know that in the 60s, the late 50s and the 60s, anybody politically astute know that the parties basically flip-flop. So let me throw that out there. So
right.
But what I'm saying is bringing it, let's put history aside, let's bring it to the day. Today, DeSantis even Project 2025 says that if a librarian or a teacher purports anything about slavery, and it goes to the narrative that you just stated, and that's what it really hurts me to hear Black.
Put it up on the chart. Put up.
I don't have that. We're gonna do.
We'll come back when we have the standard. When we have the state standard, we'll talk about it.
We'll do that. But what I want to go to the statement you made about hurting people. You don't think it hurts me if I'm sitting in a classroom, in an integrated classroom, and I'm seeing little blonde head Jerry running along, playing on his riding his horse, and to see my Black ancestors slaving for him, and you mean to tell me we can't teach that because it hurts him? Get out of here! That hurts me. That hurts me.
Yeah, but that's not the context. Listen. I was born on an island, and my father between 1965 and 1970 work pretty much like a slave here in the United States. He was a apple farmer picking apples, for 5 years without time off, without any days off, without any benefits. My dad was a farm worker in this country that helped to build America. So it's not just far-fetched slavery from my forefathers. My own father, slave for 5 years on apple farms right here in the United States to make to get money to make a life with him and my mom. So I understand, but what I'm saying is we don't teach our children to dwell on the past and tell them that because they're from this or they came from this, that they can thrive and go forward. Like you and I have taken advantage of the education system and gotten the education, and now we're working, and now we're able to thrive and become better. We had a man of color. What about Obama? He became a president of the United States, and now we have a woman of color again who is running for vice president. What we want to instill in our children is that even though you came from this is not where your destiny has to be, that you can thrive, that you can rise above your misfortunes and misfortunes of your generation. Slavery, where you came from, you can thrive. And like President Obama, you can become the president of the United States. Like Kamala, you can be on a presidential ticket. So that's my perspective. I'm not at all enshrining or, anything that, because I suffered, my generation suffered. My father in modern day in 1965, right here in the US, got no benefits, no pension, no health. 5 years he slaved on an apple farm for. What I'm saying is we want to teach our children that irrespective of your color, your circumstance, where you've come from, the slavery in your past, today in the United States of America, where we live, the greatest nation on earth, you can become the president of the United States like Obama did. You can be a woman and a woman of color, and you can thrive. You may not win the presidency, but these people have gotten right to the forefront, being people of color, and have shared historically people in their background that have been slaves. That's my perspective.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. I'm a teacher who didn't know what it was like to be on a spring break, to enjoy spring break, because I did a mentoring group and I voluntarily beat the community, not to beat the community, but I went to the community. I took elementary kids on spring break college tours every year for 5 years. And I took high school students before then, just to get them the exposure. So I'm all for that. I'm all for it. And we would end with Jesse Jackson's "I Am Somebody." I'm all about that.
You're great. You're great.
But you have to hear the mantra. If we don't know where we came from, we're destined to return. So that's all I'm saying. So
I agree.
Let's move on from that. So let's move to some of Trump's legal issues. Madam Producer, play tape one. Let's kind of it's kind of an overview of all of the legal issues that he's facing.
Former President Donald Trump is a defendant in 4 criminal cases as he races to reclaim the White House. While staggering civil judgments threaten Trump's bottom line,
I have to pay a fine of $355 million.
His criminal indictments could put him behind bars. Here's a quick look at each of those cases. In March 2023, Trump became the first former president in U.S. history to face criminal charges when he was indicted in New York. He's accused of hiding the true nature of payments made to bury allegations of marital infidelity that arose during his first White House campaign in 2016, including one to porn actor Stormy Daniels.
Trump's fixer? He is played by a different set of roles.
Trump has pleaded not guilty to 34 felony counts of falsifying business records, punishable by up to 4 years in prison, though there's no guarantee he'll go to jail if convicted.
I'm going to have to sit here for months on a trial. I think it's ridiculous.
That trial is set to start April 15th. Months later, Trump and 18 others were charged with participating in a scheme to illegally try to overturn his loss in the 2020 presidential election. The indictment accuses Trump of attempting to persuade lawmakers to ignore the will of voters and suggesting that Georgia's top elections official find enough votes for him to win the battleground state.
The defendants engaged in a criminal racketeering enterprise.
All 19 defendants have been charged under a state law known as RICO, which could carry a penalty of 5 to 20 years in prison. 4 people have pleaded guilty after reaching deals with prosecutors, while 15 defendants, including Trump, have pleaded not guilty. The judge in this case has not yet set a trial date. Trump also faces 2 probes led by Jack Smith, the Justice Department's special counsel. The first federal case, brought in June 2023, alleges that Trump illegally kept classified documents taken from the White House after he left office and obstructed government demands that he give them back.
Whatever documents the president decides to take with him, he has the right to do so.
He faces 40 felony charges, the most serious of which carries a penalty of up to 20 years in prison. It's not clear when the case might reach trial, though both sides have said they could be ready for one this summer. Smith's second indictment centers on Trump's efforts to overturn election results in the run-up to a violent riot by his supporters at the U.S. Capitol. Prosecutors say Trump knowingly pushed election fraud lies to pressure state officials.
Make no mistake, this election was stolen from you, from me, from the country.
He's also accused of exploiting the pro-Trump mob's attack by trying to convince members of Congress to further delay the certification of President Joe Biden's victory. The Supreme Court is scheduled to hear arguments over whether Trump can be prosecuted for election interference at the end of April. In total, Trump faces 91 felony counts.
I don't know how you can have a trial that's going on right in the middle of an election. Not fair.
All of the cases are winding through the courts at different speeds. But even if convicted, Trump faces no constitutional barriers in running for a second term as President of the United States.
Okay, 2 disclosures before we get into, and my guess is Miss Ingrid, and I really appreciate. We're having sometimes testy and tough discussion, but that's all right. We're brothers and sisters, and nothing's gonna come between that. I want to say to our viewers, we've asked to be on till about 9:30. So roll with us. We got a few more segments that we want to cover, so we're going to kind of briskly do this. That tape that you saw was dated, of course. Would you go ahead, Madam Producer, and put the poster up? And we can look, and I just want to get brief discussion. It's the one, it's the segment C poster with the criminal trials. It's red and yellow. Is that what that came out looking like? Because it shouldn't have.
Yeah, it was too blurry. You couldn't see it, so that's why I tried this one.
Okay, that was the one that was, okay, all right. So let me just give us updates. The first trial was the, yeah, okay, I can see how it was. I thought it was the other one. I sent the wrong one. Okay, so the hush money, of course, he's been convicted of 34 criminal counts of 34 felony convictions. The classified documents case, one of his appointee judges who drug her feet on the whole thing, ultimately threw it out. So that's being appealed by Prosecutor Jack Smith to get that reinstated. And the Georgia electoral interference case, the Trump the Trump representatives went after the prosecutor, and that case is waiting possibly after the election. And the last one, the election interference as far as the Capitol, the federal case in D.C., where he has a judge who's not playing with him, Judge Shunkin, the ridiculous Supreme Court decision, by the Supreme Court to grant him immunity, basically to make him not have to worry about that charge, which is a horrible precedent to set for any precedent, caused Jack Smith to have to go back and refile. So that case is slated to start after the election. Of course, if he gets elected, yeah, that's a federal case. It goes out the door. So let's take 2 minutes and run through each case. The first one that he was convicted on, what say you about that one? The 34th. I thought that film did a good job identifying and tying in the criminal element of that?
Well, just in general, a lot of the cases that were brought against President Trump had no standings, and that's why they're all most of them are falling apart before your very eyes and before the eyes of the public. Because if Mr. Varner, if you cheat
They're
on
not falling apart. How are they falling apart?
they're all falling apart. They're all falling apart. One has already been thrown out. The documents case. Jack Nichols case. Jack Nichols hid Jack Smith redacted information, critical information from the case, and the judge right now. So you want to give the updates of the cases and how they're all falling apart, because a lot of these cases were baseless. If you cheat on somebody who is your wife, and you say you pay somebody to shut them up, that is a matter between you and God and you and your wife. That I don't understand how a case against him cheating on his wife and having an adulterous relation, if he did, right? I'm not. He said he didn't. I don't know. I was not there. But what I'm saying, the bottom line is that how do you make a criminal case out of a private matter between people, adults who are having sex with each other? That is.
Now, you know I'm a former police officer, so you'll be hard pressed to bull jive me on these cases.
I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and criminal law. I understand the law, and I'm saying to you right now that all of these cases are falling apart because they were baseless in nature.
Look at that case. That's not falling apart. He was convicted not on one count, on 34 criminal charges. He was convicted. He has 34 felonies hanging on his name right now.
And
the criminal element of that was more. You can, yes, if you have an affair with somebody and you want to pay them off, you're free to do that. But it was the time frame and the things that he hid that were in accordance with the federal. That's a federal case.
It's not our business. It was not our business.
He did it to prevent it from meeting the federal. He defrauded the American people of the truth.
That is not correct, because he was not in office. He was not in office at the time.
But he was running for office.
He was not in office at the time of the affair. So that is,
But he paid the money off it. That he never cared about it till he ran. This is gonna be good tonight. A jury of his peers, of his fellow New Yorkers, his home city, convicted him on 34 counts of that. So let's put that to the side. Let's get to the documents case. Now let's talk about the documents. I'm gonna give you some more. I'm gonna give you some ammunition on that.
Yes, because Biden had documents that he was not supposed to have. He was not the president. He was not the president. A vice president did not have permission.
Biden had documents. Pence had documents.
Exactly.
Apparently, that's something that in the haste to get out of the White House, these guys are kind of frivolous about doing. But the difference between the two of them is that they immediately gave them back.
That is not true. That is not. Biden did not give them back. He gave them back after they were discovered. That is not true. He had them for years. He had them for years. And they were not guarded. They were not guarded.
But when they came in and discovered them, that was the thing. Trump had the same opportunity. He had the same opportunity. Once they came in and discovered them, all he had to do was give them. When they discovered that he had them, all he had to do was give them back.
He had the right to have them. He had the right to have them. He was a president. He can declassify any documents that he wants. Yes, he can. He has a president of the United States.
No, he cannot. What has happened is
Biden was not a president at the time. He had no legal and constitutional authorization to have those documents. And watch this. His documents were not protected. They were in garages. They were in previous offices where he worked. There was no Secret Service protecting those documents. They were unsecured.
Trump was in a bathroom in Mar-a-Lago. Trump was in a bathroom in Mar-a-Lago.
Exactly. And the Secret Service protects him 24/7.
When they asked him to return them, he didn't. So they had to go in and raid it. That's horrific. A former president of the United States have to have his place raided.
The raid should never have happened, but the standard is not the same, again, for every president. And again, I am not defending everything that he did or did not do. What I am saying is the American people is fascinated by him because one, he's a strong leader. Two, he's an overcomer. Three, he delivers on what he says he will deliver on. And that's why he's going to win by a landslide
Okay.
in this time.
You can allude, you can fool yourself with that, but that's all right, especially the landslide. But let me say this. I'll say two things. So I want to move on to these other two cases. Number one, you know why he tried to maintain those? Because once the time period passed, he was going to sell them and become a millionaire. I mean, not become a millionaire.
He's already a billionaire. What are you talking about? He's already a billionaire.
He was going to sell them for millions of dollars.
He doesn't need money. He's already a billionaire.
For millions of dollars as he was going to sell them for.
He's already a billionaire. He doesn't need money.
He's such a loose cannon and liar that he even said, President, if Nixon had held on to things in a few more years, he could have made millions of dollars. And those were his intentions. That's why he determined back in. And as far as dismissing him,
he didn't take a pay for presidency. Do you know that? Do you know he donated his paycheck for 4 years? He did not take 1 cent for 4 years. President Trump donated.
Wow, bless his heart. Bless his heart. Bless his heart.
Of course, he's a billionaire. He doesn't need money. He
so
doesn't need money.
What power? Power. Obviously, Putin.
He was already powerful before he got there. He was one of the most powerful men in the world. He owned Miss World. He owned Miss Universe. He had The Apprentice, the entire world. I watched him from millions of miles away as a child on television.
Money has levels of power, but there's no power like the presidency of the United States. There's
exactly,
no
and that's why we cannot afford that. That's why we cannot afford a weak president. We need a strong president who is going to.
He's a liar and a womanizer and an immoral, divisive person.
So are all the presidents. But you have to admit, Dozell, that the hand of God is on this man because no matter what they've tried, they tried to impeach him twice and they fail. They try to put him in jail and they fail. They try to assassinate him and they fail. And they're going to fail. They're going to fail at trying to assassinate him. Because
assassinate him?
I don't know who did, but he's still alive. He's still alive because the hand of God protected him. And as you know, it is written that it's God who sets up and removes kings. And if God be for you, who can be against you? And there's never been a perfect king in the Bible. We're talking about King David, who had cheated, had extramarital affairs, who sent the wife of the person to the battlefront to be killed. And after he slept with his wife, a man who had a lot of skeleton in his closet, but a man who was able to stand to bow on his knees and trust God. And Donald John Trump is the man who people don't understand.
Please don't make him a great Christian. Please don't do that.
He's not a great Christian, but he's able to bow on his knees and pray and ask for God's help. God has his hand on him for his purpose or his reason. It's not for me or you to say, how do we know this? Because they've tried to take him out so many times, try to imprison him, try to impeach him, and nothing that they try can.
I'll say this for the legal, because we gotta push on with the legal. So the judge that dismissed the case, we knew it was just a matter of time. As soon as she got his Supreme Court stoolies, as soon as they gave him this unlimited, unprecedented power of immunity, she used that. She was looking for any reason to dismiss the case. Jack Smith's going to refile that. We'll see where that goes. The January 6th case, he has a sister judge who ain't playing with him. So he better pray. He better pray that he wins the White House, because I don't see her. If he gets convicted in that, if he doesn't win, he gets convicted, I don't think he'll see home confinement.
He will win. He will win, and all of these cases are coming to naught. And some of these people who will allow themselves look at the Georgia case. This woman was having inappropriate relationship with using her position of power.
It had nothing
about integrity. No, but you're talking about integrity. We have to talk about both sides. We have to talk about both sides.
At best, it was unethical at best.
Okay, so now you're talking about it. We have to talk about both sides. There's no perfect leaders. That's what I'm trying to say. There's
but
no
what I'm
perfect
saying is
leaders. You can't just bash one and
he
not
tried,
bash
he
the
tried
other.
to overturn an election on a
There's
state level. He tried to
okay.
overturn the election.
Listen. The election, the
The
American,
Georgia election.
the America, the
On videotape. I mean on audio tape.
okay. The evidence are coming out. Okay. We're going to talk about this on November 6th because the evidence about the Georgia elections and other election are coming out, and we will talk about this again on November 6th. Let's just give the audience,
Okay.
the element of the October surprise, right? And just remember what I told you the last time I said Biden would not make it to November 5, and I'm telling you now that skeletons are coming out of the closets of these people who are running to represent us, and they will not win.
So let's move on to the next segment. Let's talk about Donald Trump being a racist, a misogynist, a homophobe, xenophobic. Let's examine that because, in all honesty, we did a show on when he first got elected. Was he racist? My brother is my co-host. He's just on assignment right now, and we did a deep dive on that. He did some amazing fact checking. And I was the one, and I asked a group of men today, in your heart of hearts, do you think Donald Trump is a racist or he does this stuff to appeal to his prejudiced, right-wing, redneck Republican base?
I
And
think he's the least racist of all the candidates that
that's
are
what he said.
And he's correct because the Democratic Party invented racism.
Let's go to tape one.
The Democratic Party invented the Ku Klux Klan and racism.
Let's go with this tape one. Remember, the parties were flip flop. So just say the Democratic Party back. Let's go to tape one in segment D.
One people, one nation, and immigration.
We're honoring the founding fathers who were white. We're honoring all of the great white men who are being smeared and defamed and torn down.
Yeah.
Tape two, let's see his response to that.
So had people that were very fine people on both sides.
Very fine people on both sides. Very fine people on both sides. How do you justify that? These people are tiki torching and talking about the power of white power, basically, and saying Jews will not replace us. He comes back. This was early in his presidency, and he says there are very fine people on both sides. Defend him on that, please, Mayor.
Oh, I'm absolutely not defending him. And like I said, he's not a perfect man, right? In the beginning, I was not. I was skeptical of a lot of things, but like I said, he delivered on the things that the American people need him to deliver on. He showed strength and not weakness, right? And he's a builder who built the economy and left it in a stage where America could be proud. So I'm not looking at because all of us have flaws and shortcomings. And I notice when they play his tapes, they don't play the full sentence or paragraph so people can get the full context. They cut him off at a couple of phrases, so you can't get the full context of what he's saying, which is highly unfair. It's highly unfair to say a phrase from an entire paragraph. He's doing an entire speech. Why just show one phrase?
I'm guilty of that only for time's sake that I cut that. Okay, let's go to tape 3. Let's look at these tape 3, and then we'll go to tape 4 right behind it.
A well-educated black.
Puerto Rico. These are animals.
Look at my African American over here.
When he talks that way, the way he did on this tape, it confirmed that he is truly a racist.
A well-educated black has a tremendous advantage over a well-educated white. A black may think that they don't really have the advantage. If I were starting off today, I would love to be a well-educated black.
They don't look like Indians to me, and they don't look like Indians to Indians. It would be 9 blacks against 9 whites, all highly educated, very smart, strong, beautiful people, right?
Pocahontas? Is it offensive? Oh, really? Oh, I'm sorry about that. Pocahontas? I think she's as Native American as I am, okay?
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. I want surveillance of certain mosques.
Negotiating with China. They say, we want deal.
I'm asking for the vote of every single African American citizen in this country. What do you have to lose? You're living in poverty. Your schools are no good. You have no jobs. 58% of your youth is unemployed. What the hell do you have to lose? Look at my African American over here. Look at him.
We are from India.
All of my friends in Little Havana. We are also praying for the people of Puerto Rico. We love Puerto Rico. And we also love Puerto Rico. Come here. You're not nervous, right? Speaks perfect English.
No, I'm not a racist. I am the least racist person that I can tell you.
Tape 4. Let's go to tape 4 because we got to wrap this up. Let's go to tape 4 real quick.
I am the least racist person. I can't even see the audience because it's so dark, but I don't care who's in the audience. I'm the least racist person in this room.
Okay, Vice President Biden, let me ask you very quickly, and then I have a follow-up question for you.
Abraham Lincoln here is one of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history. He pours fuel on every single racist fire. Every single one. He started off his campaign coming down the escalator saying he's going to get rid of those Mexican rapists. He's banned Muslims because they're Muslims. He has moved around and made everything worse across the board. He says about the poor boys, last time we were on stage here, he said, I told them to stand down and stand ready. Come on. This guy has a dog whistle about as big as a foghorn.
So so this is not just talking about him being racist. This was a whole section of prejudice. Let's go to this last. Let's go to tape 4 and tape 5. I'm sorry.
This is the Jim Heath Channel playlist of 2024 campaign ads.
He murdered a father of 3, sentenced to life in prison. Kamala Harris pushed to use tax dollars to pay for his sex change.
I made sure that they changed the policy so that every transgender inmate would have access.
It sounds insane because it is insane. Kamala was the first to help pay for a prisoner's sex change.
The power that I had, I used it in a way that was about pushing for the movement, frankly, and the agenda.
Kamala's agenda is they, them, not you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
So,
Exactly.
So we're not just talking about him being racist. We're talking about him being the most divisive president in the history of the White House. I mean, George Wallace was not as divisive had he made it to the White House as this guy. He was an avowed racist until he found Christ. And what a beautiful soul he turned out to be before he left this earth. Trump is just a divisive, and the thing that I keep asking myself, and I ask it just today, does Trump do this stuff to appeal to his racist American base, or does he do this because that's the essence of who he is? Now, the last clip that we saw, and of course, some of this stuff is exaggerated, of course, but the last clip we saw is a commercial that as an NFL football fan, I must have seen it 10,000 times yesterday. And I was just thinking, wow, he's going to. And then the day I was told, well, this morning while looking at TV, it said that Donald Trump in the White House did more. Actually, those statements that Kamala was quoted as saying, that was why she was the attorney general in California. Well, we know they do stuff like that in ads, so that does not, cause me to come unglued. But when I heard today that as the president, it wasn't something that just slid by. His administration paid more money to allow those sex changes and gender changes for prisoners. They did a deep dive onto that, but yet it only goes to people who don't really, political junkies like you and I probably, who are going to go to the surface of this. And I just couldn't believe this. So you talk about integrity. He is the one.
Listen, they all lack integrity in some areas or another, right? And Kamala is one of the most racist towards men of color. She put away more men of color in the history of California. So that's why men of color are not supporting her, and they're not going to vote for her because
she's racist herself.
She
against her own people.
Exactly. It's convenient for her to say she's a woman of color when it's convenient for her. But we look at people's track record. She says she's her mom is from India. Her father is from Jamaica, where my ancestors are from. My family knows where her family came from in Jamaica. She has absolutely done nothing with her level of influence to help. India is one of the most impoverished nations on the planet. Jamaica is another island of third world poverty. She has not used her influence to help people. She has hurt people of color more than anything else. And all she can get up and do is to speak about abortion to kill innocent people of color. Abortion is the next lynching. Abortion was invented by Margaret Sanger, who wanted to eliminate, they could no longer lynch Black people publicly. So now they kill them in the womb. And our 80% of the abortion clinics are in minority neighborhoods. 80%. Why are we killing Black and brown babies at the rate at which they are when they only make up 13% of the population? They're still lynching us. Only they're not doing it publicly. They're doing it in the womb. Why would any African American support the Democrats when they're trying to kill us? They're trying to take us out from the womb. Why would any African American support the Democrats when they invented racism? The Ku Klux Klan, they're the inventor of racism. They don't like us. They pretend to care for us, but they don't we've
gotten off of Donald Trump onto Kamala Harris, but that's all right. I want to answer some of the things that you said. I want to answer some of the things that you said. You said that Kamala Harris, and I was waiting for somebody to bring this. I'm well researched on the narrative. You said that she put more Black men of color in prison than
any other prosecutor in California. Go check the record. Go check her track record and tell me what she has done to use her influence.
Let me answer that one thing at a time. Let me answer that. So Kamala Harris was the Attorney General of California that had a horrific crime problem, as was Bill Clinton, who I was a policeman when coming out of the minimum mandatory things that he signed on to and agreed. Well, I was before him, but he allowed a lot of the things because there was a move about stopping crime in this nation. And Kamala Harris prosecuted a criminal. She didn't prosecute a white man, a Black man, a Hispanic man. She prosecuted criminals. You know, I was a policeman, and you couldn't pull that on me. Man, you just doing this to me because I'm Black. No, I'm doing this because you broke the law, dog.
So what if she
done? If you had a statistic to say that she wrongfully imprison people, then I'm gonna investigate that.
Investigate it, and they got longer sentences for similar crimes. So if you compare the same crime done by black men and then the same crime by others, they get longer sentences. You're put away. In other words, your punishment was harsher.
We know the criminal justice system does that. We do know
exactly towards our people. So why would we vote for somebody who does that to our African American men? Why would we do
know
that?
African American man and a white man can go before a judge, and 9 times out of 10, that brother gonna get a worse sentence. We know
exactly.
Okay,
Those
I know that.
But for a woman of color to stay there, to stand there and perpetuate it and do nothing to help.
And this is what we've been talking about the arc of the moral of the universe bends towards justice. Roland Martin and this other clown, not Roland Martin, I'm sorry, Professor West, who I used to have a lot of respect for, and what's the guy? Oh, Tavis Smiley.
Yes.
The Me Too movement.
Yes.
Yeah. So they were paid assassins on the part of Republican white America to attack Obama. Obama couldn't breathe. Anything he did, he wore a tan suit. They made out like that was a sin. The two of them, 2 black civil rights leaders. Okay. Tavis Smiley, the Me Too movement took him out. The arc of justice bends, the arc of the moral universe bends towards justice. The Me Too movement took him out. West is running for president now. You don't even hear about him now. He was put in the race to take black votes away from whoever at the time it was Biden. And he took the money. We always looked at him as being a leader. He's a sellout. Okay, that's what he is. So they came after Obama. They gave Trump a pass. You never heard a word out of either one of them, Toms, while Trump was in the White House. And so now we talk about abortion. As a man of God, there's no way I could ever agree with abortion. But
good. So we're voting no on Amendment 4. We're voting no on Amendment 4.
I've already voted.
Amendment 4 is going to take out more
I voted yes for Amendment 4. I voted yes for it because I voted for they need to go back and redo that where it does not. Your governor's such a coward. He did it at midnight. He signed it at midnight.
Well, that's between you and God. That's between you and God.
No. I don't have any guilt because I was just qualified. I'm a qualified why I voted for it. I didn't qualify. I didn't vote for it. So a person who could have used contraception, well, the Republicans won't take that away too. You know what? By the way, you talk about abortion. You know what abortion is about in this country? Abortion ain't about this right-wing religious. Oh my gosh, we can't kill babies, but we can let a president. But we can let a president lie and do this and do that, commit crimes. We can do that. Abortion is about white babies not being killed because they lead. White people lead in the abortion.
Well, the black babies are being killed. So that's
why. But not to the proportion, not to the numbers. Go back and fact check it.
40% of the abortions are done by a 4 to 5% of African American women. So African American women make up 7% of the population, right? So in total, black people are 13. Let me give you the statistics. Black people are 13% of the entire population. Right.
Madam producer, if you get a chance, fact check this because I just did.
Absolutely. 7% are women, 6% are men. Hold on, let me give you the stats.
The higher percentage of white women abort their babies than black women.
What I'm saying is based on the population size. No, based on the population size of black women. The ovulating women who are able to have children, childbearing women only make up 4 to 5% of the population in America, yet they're responsible for nearly 40% of the abortions. That's genocide. That's genocide. We're killing our black children who are supposed to be leaders in the next generation. So I hope all your viewers will vote no on Amendment 4.
But again, the highest percentage of people who abort their babies in this country are not Black or Hispanic.
But we're not the highest population. We're a very small number of the population. We're only 13%. So if you look at the population of Blacks in comparison to whites, we have a higher rate than they do.
Putting that statistic out, you're neatly putting that statistic out to get away from the fact that it's not about a spiritual thing that you and I agree on, that we should not kill an unborn baby.
I agree with you 100%. It's biblical, it's ethical, it's social.
That's the hypocrisy of the Christian right for supporting. But the real reason that the Christian right and the politicians and Project 2025 bears that out, the real reason they don't want abortions is because they don't want Blacks and Hispanic, they don't want people of color to become the predominant color in this country earlier than is predicted to be in 2034.
So why are they killing? So that's why they're killing them in the womb. That's why they're killing them. Listen,
that's the real reason. That's the real reason why they're fighting abortion. That's the real reason. They want this to become South Africa.
I oppose abortion because it's murder. I oppose abortion because biblically it's murder.
I oppose it for that. I oppose it for that.
And I oppose it because it is eradicating the Black race. Those two reasons.
Well, it's they don't want America to become a white, a colored nation. That's what they're. It is inevitable. So they might as well get used to it and get ready for it.
And stop killing us.
You and I might not be around, but it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So now, but that's another conversation. We'll come back and talk about abortion. I want to talk about abortion and homosexuality on the other side of the election cycle. Probably the new year, because I had to take a break from all of this hot stuff.
Okay, so your daughter just posted this. Black women have a higher abortion rate when you account for the population size. So she just fact checked me. I love it. She just fact checked me.
I tell you what. What happens is, well, the concern of white America is that they don't want that number. They know it's inevitable. Lindsey Graham and them hope that they're gone and don't have to live like when Mandela became president and South Africa was dominated by Blacks governmentally and otherwise, like Broward County is right now. That's America's worst nightmare. And I don't want to sound prejudiced because that's not me, but I just want to do the real fact of why America, the Christian right kills me with their hypocrisy. That's their reason for fighting abortion in this country.
Well, my number one reason is because it's biblical. The Bible says it's better to hang a millstone around your neck than to harm a child, and that's why I could not vote for Amendment 4 because Amendment 4 would kill babies up to 9 months and even after they're born alive.
I vote Amendment 4 because there's ridiculousness in that bill. They need to go back and redo it. If Florida's going to be one of the states, if Florida's going to be one of the states that has abortion, then you got to get rid of the 6-week ban when people don't even know they're pregnant. You're gonna have to deal with the fact that women women that are raped and incest should not be forced by law.
No, they're not forced. They're not forced. The current Florida law, 6-week, the current Florida abortion law allows for exceptions for women who are raped, trafficked, for incest, for health of the mother and health of the fetus.
God. Where did you see that? I
have a copy of it. Let your daughter fact check it.
I tell you what.
Pull up the 6-week abortion ban. I'm telling you, I saw the bill today. I read it today.
I'm not ducking it. Let's come back to this.
Yeah.
We're dealing tonight with what kind of nation supports. We're dealing tonight with what kind of nation supports Donald Trump. So we've talked about his divisiveness. We talked about his hypocrisy. We talked about the Kamala Harris ad. You chose to divert from Trump to Harris, but that's all right. I understand that strategy. I've been around politics.
She's been a hypocrite to the Black people, the Black community. She only wants our votes, but she is not.
I've been around long enough to know this strategy. Deflect. Trump's an artist at that. So let's go. Let's go to the last segment, and the last segment deals with the threat to democracy. Your threat to democracy. Let's play the last tape, please, ma'am.
Never before had a U.S. president refused to admit defeat. Never before had a president alleged the election was stolen.
Trump 2020, baby.
But on January 6th, as Congress was getting ready to officially declare Joe Biden the winner, Trump called his supporters to Washington.
We're going to the Capitol. We're going to try and give them the kind of pride and boldness that they need to take back our country.
20 minutes later, they followed his instructions and started moving en masse, just as 2 pipe bombs were found near the Capitol. With each passing moment, the crowd outside got closer and the police were pushed back. The scaffolding set up for the upcoming inauguration scaled. Windows broken, officers set upon by an angry and violent mob. Clubbed, sprayed with chemicals, punched and kicked, the crowd overwhelmed the police. What we didn't know then was how close they came to their targets. Seconds from seeing the vice president rushed into an office for his safety. Then Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and his security detail running, realizing the mob was yards away. Senator Mitt Romney told to turn and run. We now know this was a pivotal moment. The crowd lured away by police officer Eugene Goodman. If they had turned right instead of following him, they would have found senators in the chamber behind an unlocked door. And we now know how close they came to members of the House.
They're leaving. They're leaving.
Fleeing through the last available exit, they breached the door. And a single shot rang out. It was Ashley Babbitt, killed by police as she attempted to get through the door. In all, 5 people would die, including Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick. He had a stroke after being attacked with bear spray. In the following days, 4 officers would commit suicide. In all, 140 officers were injured. Trump eventually appeared on camera and appealed to the rioters to leave.
So go home. We love you.
Hours after it began, the building was cleared and the vote was certified.
Joseph R. Biden, Jr. of the state of Delaware has received 306 votes. Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 200.
2 things I want to say about that. In all fairness to Trump, he did say, let's go down
peacefully.
Peacefully. He did say that. However, the same man who said that said on his rump, as my daddy would say, because we're not people who use profanity. He sat on his rump for 3 hours while that craziness, that chaos carried on, and you saw the live.
That's not true. He offered Nancy Pelosi, and it just came out on tape. Did you hear the tape of Nancy Pelosi's daughter that said that she is the one that blocked the help to the Capitol? She stand it down. She told him to stand down. So you know, that's what I want to do.
But this is what I'm
talk about the whole thing that happened.
Okay, so I'll grant you Pelosi turned out the National Guard.
Yes.
However,
The National Guard.
you know what's amazing about that? It wasn't when that girl was shot trying to get in the Senate chamber, in the chamber itself, that she was killed where all those men were. It was when Trump finally got off his behind and said, "Go home, I love you." They left. He could have done that when his son, his daughter, his chief of staff, and others were calling him and begging him to stop it. And it's the same Trump who said that they're trying to hang Pence, who said, "So what?"
Okay, so I have one comment on the January 6th situation. You know, men forget, and this is from a biblical perspective, because I'm a woman of faith. Men forget that there is a heaven above us, and that whatever we do in darkness will eventually come to light. There's nothing under the sun that is hidden from God, our Creator. January 6th is still under investigation. I want to let you know, Dozell, that we've not heard the last of January 6th. And, all I'm going to say on January 6th is let justice, God is a God of justice, and it may not be in our time, in our season when we expect it, but God is a God of justice. He will whoever is involved, whoever was involved, the truth. I believe that the truth is going to come out on January 6th. And once and for all, the American people are going to know the truth, because from where you are sitting and from where I am sitting, we don't know the whole truth. See, just months ago, tape is coming out with Pelosi saying that she is the one that blocked the help and to the Capitol. So you and I don't know the truth. I was not there on January 6th. You were
But
not there on January 6th. But
safe
I'm saying to you, it was recorded in heaven, and that the truth is going to be revealed finally, and that justice
is going to come down from heaven.
Is going to come down from heaven. Yes.
He's given us revelation in Romans chapter 13 that says, let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, which means that there are laws and there are people put in place to uphold laws. So all I'm saying is Trump could have, if you want to give some accountability to Nancy Pelosi, that's fine. But Trump could have stopped that earlier. That could have been stopped earlier than 3 hours into it. So the segment as we close it, and you've been a trooper tonight, as we close the show, is not just about January the 6th, but it's about, is Trump a threat to democracy? I want to ask you point blank, do you think Trump, especially with what the Supreme Court has armed him with, unlimited immunity? Remember when he was running in 2015, he looked at his popularity, he said, wow, I could go out on Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and not go to jail. Do you not think that he would abuse his powers? He says he'll be a dictator day one. Do you not think that he would abuse his powers as president of the United States?
I absolutely disagree. President Trump is the greatest champion. He's the greatest champion for democracy. Democracy is not oppression. Democracy is not trying to get us to look like China. That's not democracy, right? Democracy is not giving handouts to people and offering $1,000 per month and offering to build 3 million homes to put people in. That is not democracy. Democracy is where people have the opportunity, where my family and people like myself and from all over the world can come to the greatest nation on earth, have the ability to work hard and do good and get an education and be able to take care of their family, where there are borders and walls, where we're safe, where there are laws that protect the American people, and the laws are for everybody, not for some people who use lawfare to take out their enemies. Never in the history of my lifetime have I seen such lawfare where they've brought so many suits against one man when they are guilty or even more guilty of similar crimes. This is atrocious. This is atrocious.
We're not going to make a martyr out of Trump. We're not going to do that.
He's not a threat to democracy. They try to kill him because they see that he's a leader of democracy.
You keep saying that. Who's trying to kill? Are you insinuating that the Democrats trying to kill him?
I'm not insinuating anything. Didn't you watch live television and saw a bullet hit him in the head?
No, but I'm asking, you keep saying they, almost as if
I don't know who is trying to kill him, but I'm trying to explain to you that even with every attempt to take him out legally, physically, socially, God still has his hand on Donald John Trump. Why Donald John Trump? Because he does what he says he's going to do. He has no fear. He cannot be bought. He's already a billionaire. You can't bribe a billionaire.
Only Putin, right?
Only Putin. With the regular status quo of these elites that want to control everybody and make us like China. We do not want to look like China. America is a capitalist society. People want to work hard and be able to have the American dream. We don't want to all live in apartment buildings. We want to be home owners. That is the American dream.
So the American dream is to bring
$1,000 per month handout.
To bring a bunch of oil barrels into a fundraiser and say to them, "You donate $1 billion, so many millions of dollars to me, and I'm going to make sure that we're going to cut back all of these regulations on the oil industry that's for the environment, that's strangleholding you now." That's so.
Dozell, oil was given to us by God. Oil was given to America as a resource by God himself. We did not create oil. Everything runs on oil. So listen, if you reduce the price of oil, You will reduce food, services, deliveries, everything, clothing costs, the food costs, every energy costs, everything will be reduced back down if you reduce the cost of oil. How can we reduce the cost of oil? By producing more of our own resources that God gave us. God gave to every nation natural resources for them to have wealth and prosperity and for them to live and to thrive. In Africa, they have diamonds and rubies and gold. In other nations, in Israel, right? They have technology. In Jamaica, we have Jamaica coffee, a Blue Mountain coffee. There is bauxite, there's aluminum. In every nation has its own natural resources that God Himself created to
And we
make us.
had tobacco in America.
Yeah,
We
well,
regulated
whatever it is, but
tobacco out because of its to where it is diminished greatly because of the people dying of cancer by smoking. Miss Ingrid, you have a closing comment? We got to get out of here. It's been great tonight. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me as always. You know, I love, we're two or more gathered. You know, I love that we can have discussions without knives and guns, and we can agree to disagree. I want to urge the American people to vote your values, vote Bible, and vote no on Amendment 4 on November 5. Thank you.
And thank you very kindly. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a lively discussion. I had no intentions of being as isolate me, please. I had no intentions of being as involved in the discussion as I was. However, I purposely did not bring on someone from the other side because I know we had time constraints, and even with the time constraints, by the grace of Go Giga, Mogo Giga, that we have, that they extend us tonight over the time. But we had a lively discussion. Hopefully it has been helpful to you. The show was entitled, What Does America's Fascination with Donald Trump Tell Us About Us as a Nation? We looked at him, his record in 4 years in the office. We looked at him morally. We looked at him legally. We looked at him as far as his divisive nature and integrity, and then we looked at him as far as being a threat to democracy. The only thing I didn't get to say was that with what the Supreme Court has given him, his Supreme Court, that he's given, what they have given him as far as the immunity, and by his own words, which the Harris campaign is putting out there more and more in an attempt to make America know just how dangerous this man will be if he gets in the White House. I hope that you make a prudent decision, a prayerful decision. If you haven't already voted, I voted today, early voting. I just was rushing. I did put my little sign on, and I'm inviting you to get out and vote early, vote. And we just thank you. And again, my hats off to my sister who came to us at the last minute. We're on different sides. Obviously, I tried to be a moderator and objective, but there were some things I just couldn't let go. And so we'll always be on opposite sides on that. But our love for our God and other things, love for each other, those things will never be deterred. This is Dialogue with Dozie. Listen, tonight we wanted to dedicate the show to Miss Sissy Houston, whom perished since we last did our last live show. And we may get a poster of her for next week's show. The remaining two shows will be dedicated to the election. One of those shows is doing a deep dive on Project 2025 so that you can look at it and know the full ramifications of it, and invite your friends. And of course, if they want to, if they want to comment on the show, if they want to guest on the show, we'll even let them guest. But we certainly invite their comments. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're back here tomorrow night. We're back here next Monday night at 8 o'clock. YouTube, Facebook Live again. Muchas gracias to my dear sister, Miss Ingrid, and to Brother Ludwig, who's out on the campaign trail working for the Republican candidate. That's all right. That's the beauty of America. That's why we don't want to lose democracy in this country. We love you. God bless you. Morgo Giga, you are the best. God bless.